Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. It's exciting to be with you all virtually today. My name is Kira Dickey, and I'm the Market Development Manager here at Peerceptiv. I'm excited to be your host today alongside my colleague, Jonathan Olshock. Before we dive in, just a couple housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, and we'll share the recording with all of the registrants. We're going to wrap up the content today in about 30 minutes, but we'll stick around at the end for any questions or further discussion. Also, feel free to drop in the chat at any time with questions or comments. Here's a quick look at our agenda. First, we're going to discuss some research on group formation, student perceptions, and some best practices to make group work smoother for students. Then Jonathan will show us Peerceptiv's new group formation tool. This feature works smoothly with Peerceptiv's other assignment options, so we'll spend some time towards the end showing some assignment workflows that you can build into your course with Peerceptiv. And like I mentioned earlier, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A, but feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat throughout the presentation. So with that, let's get started with some research on teamwork. Teamwork is consistently ranked as one of the most sought-after skills by employers. In fact, nearly 80% of employers responding to the Job Outlook 2024 survey from the National Association of Colleges and Employers indicated that they're seeking candidates who have strong teamwork skills. Group projects are one opportunity for students to experience the dynamics of working in a team, mirroring the collaborative environments of their future workplaces. But do students enjoy them, and what makes a positive teamwork experience for students? So this is from a study from 2023. Students generally appreciate group work when they feel that contributions from members are equal and there is clear organization and coordination within the group. On the other hand, students express frustration when they feel the group lacks that direction, when their teammates wait till the last minute to complete their work, and mismatched schedules can be a factor in this. Some students might prefer to work ahead, while others in the group might not be able to with work or other course commitments, leading them to contribute minimally at the end. And it's just frustrating all around. This imbalance can affect the quality of the work and the dynamic within the group. So it's really important to have effective coordination, clear communication, and fair contributions from all members. And there are several ways that Peerceptiv supports this that we're going to talk about throughout the webinar. So before we dive into the tool, I just want to talk about the effectiveness of teaming. And there's multiple methods for teaming. So understanding the different methods can help us optimize team formation. The first method is self-selected teams. Students usually say they prefer self-selected teams because it means that they can work with their friends. However, working with their friends can lead to homogeneity of ideas or homogeneity of people. Groupthink, clique behavior, and that can hinder the team's performance and the individual student's growth. The second method is random assignments. A lot of instructors like this method because it's faster, it's a more neutral method, but it doesn't necessarily lead to the best experience for students because it can still result in teams that have unbalanced skill levels or lacking in diversity. The third method is instructor-assigned teams. This allows instructors to set criteria for team formation. This can be beneficial for achieving specific learning outcomes, but it's very complex and time-consuming, especially in larger courses. And the last method is computer-aided team formation, which promises to automate that process for instructors. However, setting up such systems has been historically challenging and time-consuming when they even exist, which is why we at Peerceptiv decided to create our group formation tool. So one last thing to mention before Jonathan dumps into the live demonstration. I just wanted to mention that Peerceptiv is one EdTech certified and integrates smoothly with all major LMSs using one LTI 1.3 integration. This means that students don't need to create an additional username or password. They can access Peerceptiv immediately from the LMS, and all groups formed in Peerceptiv can be passed back to the LMS as well. Additionally, grades from peer review or team member evaluation can also be passed directly to your gradebook in the LMS. So with that, I will pass the screen share to Jonathan to do the demonstration portion. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Karen. Welcome, everybody. Really excited to show you our our group member formation tool. I'm going to start by showing you how to add one of these assignments in your LMS. Well, if your LMS is Canvas, that is. I think the majority of folks here do have Canvas as their LMS. The other LMSs work very similarly. We don't have time to demonstrate them all, but I just want to show you how an instructor or an instructional designer would set up a group formation assignment in Canvas. As an example. So this would be considered an assignment, so you can create it either under Home or Assignments. You'll click Add Assignment just like you would any other assignment in the LMS. You can give it a name. We'll call it Group Formation. And group formation again. You can adjust your LMS assignment settings for visibility, points, all of the things you would do for a typical assignment. The only difference is when you get to the submission type, pick external tool. Some LMSs call it an external learning tool. And then what you'll do is you'll click the Find button. And typically when you have Peerceptiv integrated in your LMS, there'll only be one Peerceptiv option here. But since this is our sandbox internally, we have a lot of different versions of Peerceptiv available for us, but you'll just have one that they'll find there. Once they do that, all you need to do is save the assignment, and the wizard to create the assignment will pop up right in your Canvas or your Blackboard or Moodle or whatever LMS you use, and you can begin to build the assignment here. So you can choose from a standard workflow, you can build a custom assignment, or if you've done this in the past, you can copy your past assignment. So every assignment you ever create is available in your library, and you can easily just copy that from a previous semester. Now, if you've set up course assignments in your Canvas course and you clone that Canvas course, the Peerceptiv assignments will also clone with it. So you don't need to actually take this step. Those will automatically be cloned. So in this case, we're just going to quickly build a custom assignment. We are focused on the group formation only tool right now. So I'll click that and then submit. Now there's a few steps to take on the Peerceptiv side of things. First of all, we will give it a name and assignment description, just like we did on the Canvas side. I'll click next. Here's your first choice you'll have to make regarding your groups. So you can either pick how many students you want to have in each group. So you can pick a max number of students per group, or you can pick the number of groups that you'd like to have in your course. It's really up to you. We only have a few students in our sandbox here. So what it will do with a max of 3 students is it'll create 2 groups of 2 and 2 groups of 3. That's the best way to do that. If you change this number, it will do 5 groups of 2 down at the bottom, or if you increase it, it changes here. So it shows you what you can expect for the output of the number of groups. So we'll stick at 3. For grading, with group formation, there's only a completion grade or no grade at all. So if you'd like to have a completion grade, you can. That will send 100% back to the gradebook once they've completed the assignment, or you can just have 0 grading turned on for this as well. So we're just going to click automatic for now. You can set a deadline for this. So you can make sure that the students complete the survey by the 13th. That way you can form the groups on that Friday, and the students will know what groups they're in so they can start their project there. You can modify this very easily. You can just click on the calendar, or you can also change up here, change the date. Click next. And then the only advanced option to choose for group formation is whether or not to send email notifications. We typically suggest that you do. What that will do is it will remind students if there's an upcoming deadline that it's time to go in there and complete that survey. So it's a nice way to ping those students that haven't completed the task yet. All right, and then they click finish. and they now have their assignment structure set up in Canvas or any LMS, as well as on the Peerceptiv side. The last thing to do is to create the survey that students will answer that will help form those groups. So you can do that from either clicking create a rubric here, or also using the rubric or survey button down at the bottom. So these are the question types that are available. So I'm going to build it here pretty generically. And then once I have it built here, I'm actually going to pop out to a different demo course that I have set up that already has the survey and the results built out. But here's where you'll add a prompt. It's pretty straightforward. There are 3 types of questions that you can ask in Peerceptiv for group formation. The first is a scheduling question. So if you've ever used a doodle poll or anything like that, it works very similarly. You can basically ask the students to select some blocks of time when they have availability to meet with their group. So this really helps overcome that hurdle of mismatched schedules that Kira talked about at the beginning. Really low-hanging fruit. Let's make sure all the students are available at the same time, right? So I'll click save on that. I've now added that to my survey. Students are good to go. They can answer this question. So now I'm going to add our second type of prompt, and that would be a ranked choice type. This is very useful if you want the students to select a topic. So let's say you're teaching a psychology course and there are 7 disorders that you would like to have the students choose from to present about. So that's where you would present that here. So it's just pick topics in order of preference. And then down here, you can add as many topics as you like. Just by clicking the plus sign, you can add more, or if you have fewer, you can also take those away. So we'll say, in my example, depression, bipolar, etc., etc. Now, these will be the options that the students will have to pick from in terms of rank order, and they can put those, which one they prefer first, and then followed by the other 3. So we have our ranked choice type, we have our scheduler type, and then there's one more type of survey question we can ask, and that's multiple choice. Again, we can have as many or as few as you'd like in terms of how many multiple choice answers. You basically ask your question here. What is your preferred working style? And then you can put collaborative, independent, and fill it out that way. We'll just give this one blah, blah, blah. Once I save that, so now I've got my survey built. And like I said, once I've built it one time, I can modify it for next semester. I can copy it. It lives in my library and I can draw on it anytime. If I go back here, I now have my rubric created and I'm able to publish my assignment on both the Peerceptiv side and the Canvas side. So that's what it looks like in Canvas, very similar in Blackboard or in Moodle. You just create that assignment. Once it's available, the students will see a link and they can click on that. It'll open up just like you see for the instructors. So now that we've seen what it looks like in LMS, I'm actually going to jump over to our direct login site to show you the rest. I know there's a number of folks here already in the webinar today who have access to Peerceptiv because your school's already purchased access. If your school hasn't, very easy to reach out to our support team to get it embedded in your LMS and then decide how you want to go about that type of integration. So this is what the students will see. When they click on that link in the LMS, they're taken to this screen. It's very straightforward. They can either click this button up top or they can click Group Survey here, and it will guide them through those questions. So here's that first question type that asks them to fill out some availability when they could meet with their team. Here's the group formation rank order. So this is the topics that they might pick. I used to teach social studies in high school, so I'm always a little bit, when I'm building these, I always tend to build a little bit of social studies type questions in here. And then the last question we have, it's another multiple choice question. And what this is asking is preferred working style, scheduled, proactive, relaxed. And here's another question about how they would like to collaborate. So do you want to work together? Do you want to work independently or some sort of mix of the two? So those are the questions we asked in this demo survey. Now, once they submit and all the students have submitted, you can either wait till the deadline and then the algorithm will run in the background and it will group the students based on those responses. You can also end it early. So if all the students complete that survey before the deadline, you can click a button and it will automatically run that algorithm as well. Currently in the system, until next semester, so we are right now, this is version 1. We just released this past fall. Version 1.2 will be released before the start of the spring semester, and that will add some additional functionality, and I'll go over that in a moment. But right now, what this does is it groups students based on similar responses. And so I'm going to stop acting as a student now, and I'm going to move over to a different course where they've already completed this assignment and show you what this looks like from the teacher's point of view. So as an instructor now, here's my dashboard that we just saw when we launched from the LMS. I can click groups to see that I have had 4 groups that were made. I can open that. I can see the students. I can also move students. So if I need to move a student from one group to another, it's very straightforward. Oftentimes, as I'm sure you've all experienced, you create a group, someone gets in a group and they want to decide they want to change. You can change them, no problem. And then you can also sync those up with, so right here is where it says group sync. What that button does is it sends these groups over to the people tab in Canvas or the groups tab in Blackboard, but it'll pass that information back to your LMS. The other thing that you can see are individual student responses. So this is my roster here. Sorry about that. My machine has been running slowly all day. This is the roster of all my students. If I click on one of those students here, I can see their grades and I can see their group responses. So in the group responses, I see that they're in the Nomadic Step Society. I can see all of their group mates, and then I can see their individual responses to the different questions that I asked. If I go to the results tab, I can see this at the group level. So I'm going to pick Greek City-States group here. And now I can see all of the responses from all of the group members here. So in this case, there were 4 people in this group, and on Thursday afternoon is when they all had availability. So we did find a common time for this set of students so they can meet then, and they'll see that as well. The students will see that information, so they'll know when the options are for them to meet. Here's the results of the ranked choice. So in this case, 2 of the students picked Greek City-States as number 1. One, it was their second choice, and one, it was their third choice. And then down here on the multiple choice questions, we see that there was a little bit of a split between proactive and scheduled, but everybody did agree that they wanted to have a mix of independent and collaborative tasks and meet regularly. So the system does its best to, based on the number of responses, to match up as similar as possible. And that's what the group formation tool looks like here for the instructors. Now, I do want to talk about what the new features will look like, because it will significantly improve or increase what you can do in the system. So let me move back over to our slideshow here. So this is version 1.2 that will be released in the coming weeks. Actually, we're testing it right now. There will be some additional features. First of all, you can weight the survey questions. So if you have 5 questions, you can pick which ones you want to be more heavily impact those group formations. So if you want the survey to be most important, or sorry, if you want the multiple choice to be more important, or if you want a particular rank order question to be more important, you can do that. You will also have the choice to either group by similarity or dissimilarity for each of your item types. So if you have one multiple choice that you want them to be similar, but the second multiple choice you want them to be dissimilar. Let's say you're in kind of a general education course and you ask everyone to put their major in there, and you offer majors, and then you want to have all different majors in those groups. You could do that by using the dissimilarity functionality, and that's an item by item selector. So some can be similar, some can be dissimilar. And then the last thing is requiring multiple similar responses in a group. So this was a request from one of our current customers who's using the tool. They wanted to ensure that their groups contained, there was no groups that had just one female in the group. The research that they had read suggested that it's much better if each group has at least 2 females in it. And so you can select that as well. So you would tell the question, if they answer this way, there should be at least one other person that agrees with that question in every group. And so you could ask, how students identify under gender. Now, we as There's no pre-built rubric questions about any kind of demographic information, but that is fine if an instructor or an instructional designer wants to build those questions in. There's no problem with that, but by default, Peerceptiv doesn't want to ask those questions. So we leave that up to the instructor or the institution. All right. So that's the group formation tool. It's really straightforward. It's super automated. The instructors can use it right away. It can push the information back and forth from the LMS, and it can often be the launching point for a more broader peer learning workflow in your course. A lot of instructors are using this for the first step of a much longer, weeks or months long process where that group will design some sort of product and kind of work through that. Oops. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of those other features in Peerceptiv that might slot into that workflow. So this would be a typical very project-based learning type of activity. You first do a group formation, then the group creates a product, whatever it's presentation or writing or PowerPoint slides, infographic, and then you can do a peer review on that where they can send it out so the other groups can give them some feedback on that first draft. So what that would look like would be something like this. So this is what our peer review feature looks like. They would submit this one's an infographic on the left-hand side, and then members from other groups could take a look at it and give them some feedback on a rubric. So what you see on the right would be a rating prompt where they can start to say, oh yeah, it looks like you need a little bit more information here. Now, this could also be a commenting prompt instead of a rating prompt where you're asking for more qualitative feedback as well. But that could be one step in your process. After they do the peer review, very often what these groups are doing is presenting to the class. So another one of our newer features in Peerceptiv is live presentation review. And what you can do with this is you could have students either presenting in front of the class or on Zoom or a recorded video. And if you do it in front of the class or on Zoom, the rest of the class who's not presenting can use a rubric like you see here to answer a series of questions and kind of stay engaged with that presentation. Really helps to engage the audience. It gets them off of their phones and locks them in to pay attention to what the other peers in their class are presenting. It also gets lots of great feedback that would be really tough to generate as just an instructor alone to the presenters. And so you can have these pre-built rubrics that the students are answering questions about as they're watching their peers present. And then the last step in a typical workflow in a project-based learning or group environment would be a team member evaluation. This gives the group members the ability to score one another, the people in the group, on how well they contributed to that group project. So it's a great way to hold students accountable for their collaboration. It also helps to level set in terms of here's the expectation for what group work should look like. You could do a team member evaluation early in the process as well to kind of say, here's my expectations, here's the criteria that I think you should be working towards as a team member. And that looks like this in Peerceptiv. So on the left would be all of the members of my group, and then on the right, I work through a series of criteria: communication, professionalism, preparedness, all the things that you would look for in a group. So you could set that up as well. And then combined, those really create a nice project-based learning workflow with accountability. There can be grading elements built into any of these activities so that it incentivizes students to participate and to really form out a really rich and meaningful learning experience in the class. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kira to go over a few other things before we close the 30-minute webinar here.
Thanks, Jonathan. So we had a couple of questions in the chat. So Jonathan, if you don't mind answering those. Just before we wrap up here, there's one final thing to mention. If you're wondering how to get started, or if Peerceptiv has not already started at your school, or if Peerceptiv has started at your school, really, our instructional support is available to all users anytime, 24/7. They also have office hours Monday through Thursday, 2 to 4 p.m. They are US-based former educators who have certifications in instructional design, and they are more than happy to help you get started. You can email them at support@peerceptiv.com, or you can simply drop by their office hours. They will literally sit on Zoom and push the buttons for you if you want. They're very nice. And could you
Oh,
advance
got
the
you. I
next
got you,
slide?
Kara. Sorry. I was answering questions in the
It's
chat.
okay. That's okay. And quickly, we get a lot of questions about price as well. So I wanted to let you know that access to Peerceptiv can be purchased online or through the university bookstore directly by students for $22.50 per semester. Peerceptiv can also be licensed on a per course basis for an entire department, college, or program, or at the university level. It just depends how your university typically funds ed tech. Many universities already have campus-wide subscriptions with Peerceptiv, meaning you and your students could get started right away for free if you're not already. To find out more information about getting started in your school or in your specific course, please email info@peerceptiv.com. And with that, that's the end of our presentation. We'll stick around for a few more minutes for questions or comments. But thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy end of semester seasons to learn about group formation.